Hello, you're watching the TelecomTV Summit on Network Automation and our panel discussion on building the network automation toolset. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content, and apologies in advance for any coughs and sniffles, but it is that time of the year. Now, we have a slight change to our usual format today. Both our panel discussion and the audience Q&A are live, so we really want your input. Please send us any questions, thoughts, or observations that you have, but don't wait too long because the show only runs for about an hour. We're going to start our short discussion with our guests, and then we'll turn our attention to your questions. But before we do, let's quickly set the scene. And joining me for this live show is, as always, Ray Lemaitre, Editorial Director here at TelecomTV. Ray, building the network automation toolset, it's all about what tools a telco needs to implement and run network automation processes and how they use these tools and which partners they need to help them. This all sounds very complex.
Well, Guy, it's tricky, but also it's not like this is anything new in terms of focus or capabilities for network operators. I mean, automation started rising to the top of the focus pile for telcos, at least 6 years ago. As with other developments, though, it hasn't been easy to implement because it impacts so much. And also it's something the operators need to get right first time. And now some of them are, of course, developing the required applications and functions in-house as they strive to become techcos rather than telcos. They need outside help and partners for sure, but there seems to be a lot going on within the telco tech teams as well.
Yes, it's fascinating to watch. And Ray, you're going to be sorting through the audience questions for us.
Yeah, that's right. I am the gatekeeper, Guy. So here's a message for our viewers. Please send in any questions on network automation that you want to put to today's speakers by using the Q&A form on the website. And we'll put the pick of the bunch to our guests a little later in this show. But please keep them short and focused. There is no need to submit an essay.
Thanks, Ray. And we'll see you again a little later, hopefully with some interesting questions from our live audience and not too many essays. Well, while Ray looks through your questions, let's meet our guests. And joining us live on the program today are Rafiqat Chowdhury, Chief Technologist, RAN Automation for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Rahul Attri, Advisor and Head of Transformation and Strategy for Telco MNC. Grant Lenihan, Principal Analyst with Appledore Research. And Jeff Hollingworth, CMO of Rakuten Symphony. Hello everyone, very good to see you all. Thanks so much for taking part in our live discussion today. First thing I'd like to ask everyone, for an operator taking an open and cloud-native approach to automation, what's the size and shape of the available ecosystem of providers and products? How much choice do they actually have? Grant, from your independent viewpoint, what are you seeing here? Is there sufficient size and scale in the ecosystem yet?
I'd like to say there's huge scale in the ecosystem, but before we get into it, we should even think about what makes up this ecosystem. Because we can break it a couple of different ways. We could look at different tools that do similar things across different vendors. For example, tools from Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud and AWS, or tools from various orchestration firms. But automation, at least advanced automation of the type we're looking at, is really a control loop. It's negative feedback or a control loop. And that means you have a number of software systems in the closed loop that need to work together. And almost without exception, you're going to see some companies that focus on AI ops, and others that are doing machine learning, and others that are doing model and intent-driven orchestration, and they may be brought together in some kind of a unified whole. But they are going to be brought together. There are quite a few vendors in this area. In fact, we've been doing some major research roundups, and the number of new players from different parts of the industry, I think is really interesting and contributing a lot of diversity. And we're lucky enough to have people from one of those somewhat disruptive and innovative entrants with us here today. So I'm sure they'll have a lot to say on that topic.
Rafiket, if I could address this one to you, what's the benefit for an operator of getting multiple automation tools to interwork and operate within a common framework?
So first of all, is the ability to do closed loop, which is that interwork orchestration on one side with assurance, so that you are able to not only have a sustained observability, but also linking it with remediation actions and put a lot of things into autopilot mode, right? So closed loop is one major factor. Secondly, when you integrate these two aspects as a framework together, you are doing some of the pre-integration work that actually reduces some of the system integration challenges, as well as eliminating some unknowns when you actually deploy the solution. So basically, this simplifies the overall environment, as well as offer a solution for a specific use case that works together, not just from having monitoring and orchestration as two disparate processes, but something which is a seamless operation that help us achieve eventually closed loop, but then gradually move on to ultimately to a control loop situation to achieve sustained autonomous operation in the network.
Thanks, Rafiket. And there's that closed loop requirement again. We've already heard from Grant about. Well, if that's the case, what are the challenges of doing this? Jeff, what needs to be fixed or improved if we're going to get this interworking on a common framework of tools?
Yeah, thanks, Guy. I think it's important for us maybe just to go back to the basics of what we're actually automating. So in our industry, we maybe have three phases of main activity that today primarily are done by people. We plan, we build, and we operate different highly distributed sites in a communicating high performance network. When we speak about automation, we're trying to pull all of those different jobs to be done into one holistic software perspective and software data-driven understanding. Now, in modern software, it's done through interworking through different parts of a software system. They can be open source, they can be from vendors. But what's hugely important, I think, for all of us to understand is that this is a core operation of our business. This is not something that any operator should just be handing over the fence to somebody else to do, because you're really handing over the core discipline and understanding of what you are actually operating as a business. I think the second aspect is that sometimes in automation, especially in the internet world, we think that we are going to be only dealing with process, software, and hardware. That's not true in telecom. People will still be involved because telecom is a physical existence of a network. So it's also the added orchestration and automation where people's jobs are easier to do because of the existence of that common understanding from a software platform.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks very much, Jeff. Grant, let's come back across to you for some additional views of these challenges.
Yeah, I think Jeff opened up some really interesting ideas that I just wanted to comment on. The first is the idea of this being one process. And one process does not necessarily mean one piece of software. In fact, in something as complicated as managing telecom networks, whether they're broadband or mobile or both, it's going to be multiple pieces of software brought together. But you do need one very consistent control loop. Something I learned when I started playing with control loops over 30 years ago, actually in a physical laboratory with hardware, and wires, and components, is that most systems are more complex than any one person can capture and evaluate. And the more you break this down into pieces, the easier it is to understand and refine. So the idea of, while you're thinking globally, act locally. I think this plays out in telecom in that we are very likely to have multiple domains and operate as locally as we can. Transport, router and optical vendors and specialists are going to build products that really think of the network as, connections and paths. And, radio vendors and radio experts are going to look at parameters for radios. And there's going to be the cloud native workload portion of it that maybe we all think of as automation, but is really only one domain. So this is a complex set of activities, and the simpler we keep them, the better we're going to do, and then bring them together into one holistic whole. I hope that makes it simpler, not more complicated.
No, it does, Grant. It's well, personally, I find it's a very complex subject, and we do need some clarity as to the best ways forward here. So this is all terrific stuff. Raffiket, did you want to come in and comment on this one?
Yeah. So one of the things I would like to add is that when you are linking, orchestration and assurance, which traditionally are like two separate processes together to achieve a control loop system, one of the challenges that needs to be solved is how to link the design time with the runtime, so that you capture, all aspects of resources or services that are being managed, not just from how you're going to provision those, but also how you're going to, monitor them, and what are the rules that needs to be used in automation, whether it's based on topology or correlation or, KQIs and whatnot. So ability to link design time with the runtime, as well as using a kind of a common reference framework for resources and service models, so that both parts of the closed loop environment are able to effectively use that information to achieve the end result. That's one part of that. Secondly, I would like to add that with cloudification and where networks are moving from monolithic platforms, black boxes, to open network stacks, where there are another level of detail that needs to be managed. For example, in case of virtualize or Open RAN, there's infrastructure, there's OCloud, there's applications, and then the radio service itself. You're no longer monitoring just one disparate equipment. You have to have observability at all layers, correlated together, and then you have use that for closed loop. So ability to model different layers, and not just how the fulfillment will happen, but also how assurance needs to be managed. That is something that we see as a challenge.
Thank you, Raffiket. And let's go back over to Jeff, because I think Jeff wants to add some comments here.
Yeah, and maybe just to close out this bit of the discussion, I think what's interesting is that the conversation's quickly gone to the requirements to have a system level understanding. And one observation that I think is important is that automation is the automation of what we do manually today. We have to understand what we do manually today in entirety. And quite often we don't do that, which is where things don't work in terms of automation. There's a lot of very basic, simple steps that are taken for granted. It's almost like the water that surrounds a goldfish. We don't see it anymore. But if we do not understand how to automate the water, then we cannot automate the system. So understand what we do today to run a business, then understand what you need to do to automate what we do today to run that business better.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's terrific comments on that question, or that talking point we have. Before we move on to our audience questions, there's one more point I'd like to put. Rahul, let me put this across to you, because an alternative approach here is to perhaps select a pre-integrated or bespoke solution, perhaps from a telco's preferred partner. What are the advantages and disadvantages of that approach?
Great question. If you would have asked me a couple of years or maybe 10 years back, do you want a smartphone with a pre-integrated best camera, internet browser, and a lot of features which a smartphone offers, I would have jumped onto it. But did it take an evolution to reach out to that point? Yes. Similarly to the network, automation, orchestration, design, runtime, inventory management, assurance, the life cycle of the network itself. Today, we have multiple solutions. Some of them are open source, some of them are legacy, some of them are onto the journey of becoming more of telemetry-based real-time systems or near real-time system, AI ops. Ultimately, I would say, in short, yes, we should have one integrated end-to-end system. It could be pre-integrated. It could have multiple apps or applets building it to end. Similar to an analogy of a smartphone, all the things were evolving in parallel. The camera, the screen, the battery, all of them were evolving, but somebody thought of it, integrating them and building a platform which now serves to everyone and anyone. On top of it, we built an app store where if you have more applications or more use cases to be solved, you could just download it on runtime. It is open, it is configurable, it is plug and play. Tomorrow you don't want it, you can remove it. Till the time we reach to that aspect of the network orchestration, automation, lifecycle management kind of functionality, I think we will still have to live with multiple systems. The best point, the advantage of having one system is you have one brain, you have one state of the network, you have one system of records to look at. Also the human side of it, you don't need multiple skilled people. You don't need people to come to different platforms to share, collaborate among themselves. Even a configuration file or a YAML file or information which was collected in the lab to take it to the production takes a lot of effort into today's world. When the system of record is one, the automation framework is one, it will be one system, just like Microsoft 365 tomorrow. Everyone in the laptop of telecom operator, from operations to design to the dispatch, would be using one system. But today, I think we still have time. The standards are showing places where they are building the systems. We also have to evolve from network functions provider. Today, they come up with their own orchestration system, on observability systems, on cloud in some of the cases. But ultimately, it is the CSPs, customers, the ecosystem all have to come together and say, this is the blueprint, and we all adapt to it. Maybe we just need to have pluggable network functions. The cloud is always there. The cloud could be hybrid, could be the on-prem. The orchestration, lifecycle management, as one of my colleagues in this panel just said, that it has to be from design, run, lifecycle management time. And Jeff also mentioned that it could be some holistic approach. I mean, define automation. It's the most commonly used word for anything we want to live with and find efficiencies on. There's no one answer to it. I would love the ecosystem to evolve to a point where there is one system, one host of system, which could give us the benefits and efficiencies around the organization. But today, I think we will have to live with multiple systems, making that holistic single pane of glass or a single lifecycle manager kind of a workflow for us.
Great, thanks, Rahul. And interesting analogy with the smartphone there. That's good. Rafika, let's come across to you for some comments.
So I would like to give example of Open RAN Alliance SMO framework, which is a well thought out framework to basically provide automation for disaggregated RAN. Bringing it all layers of the new virtualized and Open RAN in terms of infrastructure, in terms of cloud software, VDUs and VCU management, as well as radio configuration and optimization. This is a very good effort actually to enable a well-defined with clear boundaries, a use case that can be automated with pre-integration tools, specifically on one side AI ML for observability, and putting a lot of automation in an autonomous way, and then also using intent-based orchestration so that we can manage an open RAN deployment based on multi-vendor technologies, based on stacks from different vendors in a seamless fashion. And that's actually a very good example where a pre-integrated solution can be built, like in case of HP. We launched earlier this year HP RAN automation, which is offered as a SaaS, pre-integrated, pre-validated with the partners, and basically offered as a service. And that helps customers achieve faster time to market, as well as eliminate operational or rollout risk, because solution is pre-integrated, it's used readily out of the box without any complex system integration. So there are definitely benefits in there. Of course, that means that the solution would have a lot of standardized processes. A lot of customers would like to customize according to their own unique needs. So there's a benefit in going for standardized processes, but they have to be ability for customers to be able to adjust or adapt different business processes according to their own unique requirements. So that's also a challenge that needs to be managed in a pre-integrated solution.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'd like to pause our discussion there. We've had some great comments so far, because I want to bring Ray back in and see what audience questions he has for you all. Welcome back, Ray. How are the questions coming along?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Guy. As usual, once the program started, we got more questions coming in. So the first one, and actually we've had this question for quite a while. It came in very early in our summit program. And the question is, limited by the robustness and adaptability of existing AI algorithms, network operators still need to continuously optimize their AI models online using human resources. How can operators get around this? And this isn't part of the question, but I think the person asking the question is asking, I guess, how can operators move from this state of play with human interaction in the AI algorithm updating process to get to that zero-touch automation, zero-touch networking sort of paradigm that we've heard about for a number of years already? So Grant, maybe we can start with you. Is this how much of an issue is this? You know, you've got AI tools for automation, but you still need humans interacting in the process behind the scene. Is this going to continue for a while, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it is, but I think we need to move beyond it as we can. Let's start with sort of an old wag, though, that I think is very useful, which is, if we look at AI, the term is somewhat overused, in my opinion. There's a belief that maybe machine learning is programmed in Python, but AI is programmed in PowerPoint. And I think that kind of summarizes the state of the industry. There's not a lot of real, honest to goodness AI with deep learning, unsupervised, being used in telecom. I think there's 2 or 3 places where humans become involved in the process. The first, and at the highest level, it is creating the machine learning methods and algorithms that are used, right? The second is machine learning is largely broken into 2 areas: supervised machine learning, where the machine takes a guess, it submits it to humans or a human who says that was a good guess or a bad guess. Maybe you find out after implementing its suggestion and seeing if the problem clears, right? And then there is unsupervised machine learning, where you let the system run very largely based on its track record. And that's one place. It's the second place that human beings are used in the system. And I think supervised learning, early days, as we are sort of understanding the behavior of networks, the failure methods, the resolution methods that work well, is probably fine, as long as we don't keep it as a crutch. There's a third place that the question asker may be really referring to, and that is, we have spoken about closed loops quite a bit in this panel. There's been a lot of talk in the industry, and often when you push on those closed loops, they are actually kind of open loops. It closes to a human being who looks at it and says, "Yeah, I'm okay with that solution. Let's press the button and let the machine correct it." And that's a little different than having the human being in AI or in ML. They are now part of the control loop, and they are to some degree supervising it, but to some degree really reducing risk. One thing I think operators need to recognize is that to scale and ultimately get the real-time behaviors that we're looking to the network for in the future, we're going to have to get human beings out. There simply aren't enough human beings. Even if we had infinite trained human beings, they don't operate in a couple of milliseconds. So we need to get beyond that. I'm curious what people who have actually run networks have to say about that.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks, Grant. Great insights there. Now, I know Jeff definitely wants to come in on this. I just want to check, Rahul, did you want to come in on this question as well? If not, I can go straight to Jeff.
I think the question has multiple folds to it, and I think Grant was also trying to highlight that is the infrastructure or the models ready? If we have what it takes to just not do the plain anomaly, but also do the closed loop, I think the technology exists. Do we have the data set? Yes, we have the data set in telco network. Can we do that today? I think we can. It's just the process and inheritance of the operator functioning today that they just take the usual route of, if we want to do a closed loop action, somebody have to supervise it. If not, we also need the clear guidance into, if we just take the closed loop action, what it reflect into the network as a whole. And I believe that today, if we want to, there is a complete possibility to have a central policy manager where you can just take the efforts from something like a RIC, or even define your policies and work groups to take those actions. And the question about taking that into the production network, I think we can start slow. It doesn't have to be drastic, making changes to say, how do I improve my reliability or accessibility, or let's say throughput analysis to a point where I should be the best. But also start with small intensive actions which could not be service affecting or could not disrupt the network, but also give you a confidence to say, yeah, this closed loop is actually working. The model is tuned, because the intent or the idea is not to have the closed loop in the sense, but to customize the model or the neural network or the unsupervising learning models to customize to that particular network and data set. That's where a lot of efforts have been spent, and that's where a lot of energy needs to be spent. And in my opinion, we're ready today. It's just that we just need to close the loop on how the change management and overall process would work around this.
Okay, excellent. And we've got another question coming a bit later on that kind of gets to some of what you've talked about there, but we'll come back to that later. Jeff, let's come to you next, and then to Rafikat.
Yeah, I think there's so many interesting aspects that this question brings up that highlight other transformations that have to start happening. Any kind of closed loop decision is as good as the data it has access to make that closed loop decision, and also how fast it can get access to that data. There's very little difference actually between running a self-driving network and running a self-driving car. There's certain things that we do closed loop today, very isolated, very low impact, as Rahul says, very common, repeatable. We have a confidence level as people that that's okay. Now, coping with natural disasters where there's chaos and there's millions of events, and trying to translate that is not something that we do in an autonomous way today. And there's a debate whether we get to that or when we get to that. But I think the interesting part of the question is not seeing it as a removal of humans and a replacement with machines, but more so the fact that humans will always be involved in these systems in terms of fine-tuning the efficacy and coverage of the actual machine learning or AI systems, whatever, the decision-making systems that are handled by machines rather than humans. But the small scope ones that maybe a lot of time and effort is spent today can absolutely be removed by closed loop in a very safe and trustworthy way.
Yes, I think this has long been the hope and aim of many operators to get rid of some of those time-consuming processes and have their operations team work on something useful rather than just firefighting all the time. So Rafikat will come to you, and Rahul will come back to you after that.
So to add to what Jeff said already, there's the people aspects that needs to be managed as well. So in a traditional environment where the NOC engineers, they have to look into detailed logs and traces and whatnot, and then make mental decisions, and based on that, make changes to the network. When you put all of that onto autopilot mode in a control loop solution, the confidence and the confidence of the network operators and reluctance to put a lot of those things into autopilot mode, that is something that needs a change, and it needs a different type of skills as well. So the transition does not happen just by rolling out new AI technology, but also upgrade the people part as well in terms of the skills. So rather than focusing too much of energy as in today in terms of looking into logs and traces, you put energy and resources into learning how to implement, how to do training and learning, and how to operationalize those tool sets. So there's a shift in focus in terms of what kind of skills are required, and also they need to be more open, less reluctant to put that technology into use, in an actual use, so that sustained autonomous operation could be achieved.
Okay, yeah, great points. And that comes back a bit to what Jeff was saying there about confidence as well. I think that the teams have to be given the confidence that this is a positive step forward as well. And Rahul, you wanted to come back on this point as well again.
I think both mentioned one or two very important points is the access to the data. I think today what we do is the data are siloed based on the domain they come from. For example, the business side of the data is somewhere else, the operation side of data is somewhere else, devices somewhere else, radio network somewhere else. So the access to the data and the sanitized data is the key. And like my friend just said, that the skill is completely different. Now you're looking at the future NOC. You're not looking at the NOCs what we are used to know for the last 20 years or so. Now the operations would be more like a data science team, or more on the AI models and tuning them. And all the efforts and energies should be spent to upskill the current members, or inducing the new members with that skills, rather than making them see into the incidents and closing the tickets and the usual the operations and processes of the current model. So if we kind of take care of those things, I think we have the technology to reach where the question was about from.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. I think it's a common question that crops up very often as well, about the impact that all of this will make. Right, we're going to move on. We've got a bunch of questions here, so I'm going to move on to the next question from our audience. And this question is, and this was hinted at a little bit earlier in the discussion, but it'd be good to broaden out. The question is it possible to unify the automation of cloud native and legacy workloads, or do they have to be treated as separate challenges and separate entities? So, do we need to automate legacy processes in one way, and if you're introducing next generation, maybe disaggregated networks or a cloud native 5G core, is the automation different there? How does this play out? Does anybody want to come in and start off to answer this question at all? Any takers? Jeff, I saw you move there. Okay, brilliant. We've got three. So, okay, we all want in on this now. We'll start with Jeff, come to Grant, Rahul, and then Rafiket. But Jeff, let's come to you first.
Yeah, the simple answer is yes, dependent on your ability to access the data about what those systems are doing. One of the largest systems we actually have in the industry are the teams of people who are continuously planning and building and upgrading all of the existing sites around us. And that has to be done with work orders, and we have to be aware of what those changes are in real time. If we're not visible to the people system, then we really can't decide why something is slow, why something's not working, why something went down. So what's interesting to me is that we will always be running a highly distributed operation that will require continuous upgrades in the real world. And that's the best example of a system that needs to be surfaced in terms of the data and those work streams, so that then you can take it into the fault management, performance management systems.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, great point. There's I guess there's a lot of steps towards these kind of situations of bringing all the data together. Grant, let's come to you next on this. Is this something that can be unified?
I'd like to pick up on some great points that Jeff made, beginning with a statement that we need to remember the nature of our industry. And there is a saying that the money in this industry is in the poles and in the holes, right? It's in civil engineering and spectrum and access and controlled environmental vaults and aerial amplifiers and ponds and radios, et cetera. And that means that we're going to have very different types of physical infrastructure underneath the ultimate service. We need to look at this as a layer. And these are very practical issues that we have to look at. For example, I'm going to move into a little bit of a simpler area than the radio. I'm going to move into the idea of software-defined networks and a broadband transport service as part of a WAN. Sorry about that. For a client. And underneath that, you may have two different kinds of routers. It's very common and will probably continue that you'll have dedicated hardware with very high performance, dedicated routing chips running some parts of it, and you may have virtualized network functions in other places. At the highest level, configuring routers should be identical, whether it's a proprietary box or an open white box with software running on it. Yet when you get down to the management of them, they're very different because you can't restart a piece of hardware. You can restart a workload that is forming a router, and yet even that virtualized router sits on HPE or Dell or somebody's servers and infrastructure. So in the end, we need to find ways to abstract what is different at the lowest levels and have consistent operations and loops and processes around the layers of services and network services and resources that are common. There's billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure out there, and we need to operate it all consistently and in the most modern way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real goal if the industry can get there. Rahul, what's your view here? How soon might this integration be able to happen?
I love it. I mean, brilliant question, to be very honest. If it just kicks the product manager out of me. I think the future state of the network is the captive portal, call it marketplace, call it the intent capturing portal, where the consumers would come to. The consumer could be an enterprise, could be a drone company, could be healthcare, could be manufacturing, could be an enterprise asking for multiple eSIMs. The second layer of the network would be the automation, orchestration, billing, and unanimous network abstraction layer. And then would be the network. And the network could be legacy, could be a disaggregated, open, cloud native network and not. And if we want to reach to that state, the middle layer have to support whatever is on the southbound as a network function, network element, or the domain orchestrator, what may come. And to do that is I think I've seen multiple PRs from the big boys and also the newcomers about the solutions or the abstraction layers or the automation and orchestration layer, which will support the legacy and also the cloud native network functions going forward. And I think if you're an operator, if you're in CSP, that's the natural process. You cannot just rip and replace your entire network overnight and just say, I'm going to shift tomorrow to this. And these are heavy investments, and the network abstraction, automation, OSS of the future, BSS are those layers which you invest like good 5 to 5+ years. And next time, whenever the cycle comes and the tier 1, tier 2s or the operators want to invest, they would love to invest in the platform, which will support the future cloud native, disaggregated, and also the meanwhile transitionary legacy or the current black box kind of solutions. And I think there's not much to do on these APIs, configuration templates, the logic or the playbooks or the workflows to make that happen. Grant just gave an example of a router, which is much more simpler. But if you know the config file, you know the netconf API or OpenConfig APIs, and you know how to generate those configuration files and the parameters in those based on the logics, you can trigger that. Doesn't matter if you have the vendor EMS system integrated or a unified automation of orchestration system on the top. So I think this is the only natural way forward. And this should be the number one agenda when you see new RFIs, RFPs, new alliances, new forums, new discussions being initiated.
Okay, yeah, a great point on the timing there. Of course, it's everybody wants to get the most out of the systems they've got, but also have the most up-to-date systems. It's a real tension there. Rafikat, we'll come to you next.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to draw from the RAN example. While new disaggregated RAN starts in a small scale in any service provider, there's still a legacy RAN or traditional single vendor RAN that needs to be there for a few years in the future. So while customers are investing in this new SMO architecture, there is a great deal of benefit if you can extend that functionality to manage the traditional RAN as well. So some of the things like assurance or ability to do configuration and optimization for the radio parameters, reporting on 3GPP RAN KPIs, RAN slice subnet management, etc. So all of those functionalities are quite common, right? Whether it's a traditional network or a virtualized or open RAN. So by using or by extending this new SMO solution to do hybrid management, both for virtualized as well as traditional RAN, customers are not only able to realize the earlier realization of the return on investment, but also able to retire tools and processes in the legacy environment, and basically help organization gradually, start using AI, ML-based tools and more closed loop and simplify the operation. So there is definitely a benefit in hybrid management using the same tools for both new environment as well as traditional networks.
Okay, yeah, excellent points there, Rafikat. I saw Jeff and Grant wanted to come back on this. So yeah, if you've got any brief additions, Jeff, will come to you first.
Yeah, I just want to bring it back to basics a little bit. Automation is a software problem. All of the moving parts in your business, which includes the hardware, the software, the cloud, the people, you need to have two-way communication with them because you need to be able to program them in real time. So one aspect of an answer to this question is if you cannot gain access in real time and program an element, be it a person or a piece of machine or a piece of software, then you probably need to retire that if you want to go after automation.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Jeff. And Grant, we'll come back to you for the final comment on this.
I just want to focus on the simple solution to all of this, right? Which is and I believe a couple of my colleagues have mentioned it, the first thing to do is really understand the process, probably better than you do today, right? We've all said we understand something, and then when we try and write down every step, we miss some, right? Like a recipe. And I think a lot of the exercise here is understanding all of those steps. And at that point, which pieces can be abstracted that are common and which aren't. And it also probably helps in assuring that a process works consistently when you do, out of necessity, have more than one software system involved, maybe in different geographic domains or something. So to emphasize what Jeff has said, it's really about understanding the problem well, writing down the problem, understanding exactly the data you need to make a decision, because if you don't get that data, your orchestrator, no matter how smart it is, cannot make a wise decision.
Absolutely. A very wise point, Grant, there. Thanks to close out that question. Now we've had some great discussion here and time is moving on. So at this point, I'm going to hand back over to Guy.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Some real smart comments there from our guests. That's fascinating to listen to this. But it is time now to check in on our audience poll for our Network Automation Summit. One question, 7 answer options, and you can pick whichever ones you feel are the most relevant. And the question we're being asking this week is, which are the most important areas of focus for telco AI strategists during the next few years? And you can see the real-time votes right here on the screen. They don't add up to 100%. That's because you can vote for multiple choices. So for example, the top choice there, enabling network as a service functionality, 63% of those who voted said that that was one of the most important areas. Now, if you've yet to vote, then please do so, because the more votes we get, the better. And we're keeping the polls open until the end of the summit. Now, looking at the clock, we've got about 10 minutes or so of time remaining. Just about time for another question or two. But first, Ray, what do you make of the poll results so far?
Well, the one thing I would say, Guy, is that those results have actually changed even since this morning. So we've definitely had people coming in and voting while we've been live on this afternoon. And what's interesting actually is that the network as a service option had a much higher percentage of the overall votes earlier on. And the thing that's really sort of crept up into about second place there was the focused on energy efficiency and energy management. That's really come up the stack there. So I just want to turn to our panelists here and see from that very quick look you got at the updated results. Any surprises from this the poll results there, or anything that any of you wanted to pick out at all? If not, we can quite easily move on. But if anybody wants to comment on the poll results, yes, Grant. Yeah, Grant and Rahul.
Rather than comment on the individual results, I thought looking at the poll questions and the distribution of answers was what was really interesting, because it shows that when we ask what appears to be a simple question, like, when is AL and MI going to be, or what is AL and AI and ML going to be applied, we see this huge disparity from implementing network services in NAS at the top to detecting DDoS and detecting threats and understanding failure modes. And this really illustrates how big and broad the problem is that we're trying to solve. I think to some degree it goes back to something I think we've all said in different words, which is you need to focus quite narrowly on a problem you can clearly define and understand, and then ultimately, and someday we'll wrap it up into an all singing, all dancing automated network, but that won't be for some time now.
Okay, yeah, great point, Grant. Rahul, any surprises there in the initial results we have in this poll?
No, not really. Network as a service, and then the new business model and new business enablers for the operators. Right up on the top, good to know that. And then it also shows that you understand where the ecosystem and industry is moving. Security and sustainability for me are the next two important topics which as an industry, as an ecosystem, we all should focus on and take responsibility and figure out things together. So yeah, brilliant questions, and I think I love the results which I see on currently.
Okay, excellent. And Rafikat, any surprises in there for you?
No, no surprises. But I would like to talk about one of the items that was highlighted that actually helps us illustrate a lot of points that we discussed earlier in the questions, and that is the energy efficiency for RAN. And that's a very good example because because of the way RAN is disaggregating now, it's no longer an appliance-based solution, which you could do only limited management. But the open RAN offers more programmability in the entire stack, and that actually opens up to the extent that how much efficiency you can achieve. So today, for example, you're no longer limited to just playing with the radio parameters. You are able to dynamically move workloads from one location to another. You can reprogram the service chains. You can link observability data from the hardware, from the COT server sitting on a RAN side all the way to the radio parameters, and that actually that's actually a possibility now that AI ML can help achieve a better result, right? Because of the programmability in the RAN, because of the openness, because of the disaggregation. And that also means that the tools, the automation tools that need to look beyond than, rudimentary event-based monitoring, we should be able to correlate different layers of the stack, information from the different layers of the stack together in a consistent fashion, and then achieve closed loop around that, and not just achieve closed loop, but introduce changes in the network to the effect of like energy efficiency, where it's not really directly a network service or any network resource impact, but has a greater impact on the overall OpEx as well as sustainability issues.
Okay, excellent. And unknowingly there, Rafikat, you've actually answered one of the questions that we weren't going to have time to get to today, that came from the audience. So thank you very much to that. Somebody out there in the audience will be very happy. Jeff, you wanted to come in with a very quick comment, and after that we've got time for one more audience question before the end of the show.
Yeah, this is I wasn't going to comment on this, but I couldn't help myself. I'm not so sure it's an interesting question. AI/ML is a hammer looking for a nail. In the same way, you could ask the question, what's the most interesting problem to solve with HTML? And HTML can solve healthcare problems, gaming problems, all kinds of different sites. So I think the more interesting question for us to ask is, what are the most important challenge areas we have as an industry in short, medium, and long term? And then I think we should look at how AI/ML can improve those first.
Okay, great. Feedback there is our question sucks. Thanks for that, Jeff. Your feedback always appreciated. But yeah, you do make a good point, of course, and we'll come to that question next time for sure. Look, we do have time to get one more question from the audience here, and it's actually, this is going to be 3 questions compiled into one. It's to do with standards and APIs related to network automation. So we have a question: are there any standards for automation software tools to make them compatible across all network equipment, and are there sufficient APIs? So that's one question. But then we've had a couple of questions asking specifically about whether there is a role in network automation at telcos for what is being done at the TM forum with their APIs for solution integration, and also for the APIs being developed at the MEF. So I wonder if anybody wants to come in here and start a response to this. Are there any good specifications out there in the industry related to network automation and the APIs? Grant, thanks very much. We'll start with you.
I think, first of all, the idea that standards are going to solve compatibility across software packages is close, but not quite the right spin. Most of the standards we have in the industry have to do with the format of the data, right? It's so that, system A can communicate with system B. The next stage you have to do is define what that data is. And for that, you need an example service. And in many cases, we don't know the example services because many telecom services will reveal themselves over time. A great example, since the TM Forum and the MEF were brought up, is the TM Forum API standards, which is really a payload into which you can pour data, but you're going to have to define a service, define the schema and semantics for that service, and then allow the data to be put in it. And in fact, I was down at the MEF working meetings last week where exactly this problem was illustrated. And the MEF is taking the TM Forum APIs and then putting their own defined services and order data inside them so that they're fully realizable. Just bringing this back to solving the problem of automation, to have two systems operate similarly, we really need to model the services, model the equipment the same way. How do they scale? How do they fail? what assurance information are we looking for that could be an indicator of an impending failure or an existing failure, or a threshold crossing where you need scaling to deal with capacity and avoid congestion. To some degree, what format you put them in doesn't really matter as long as both ends of the chain understand that format. But getting those models the same are absolutely critical. And one thing I would like to see the industry spend more time on is defining common network services, common radio and router and service model types, and building the best, most comprehensive models with all the data for the lifecycle management of them, and collaborating so that we don't have operator A saying, I'm going to build better ones and use that as my differentiator, but rather sharing with their competitors and learning from their competitors and propelling the whole industry forward.
Okay, yeah, great points. And there's been a lot of discussion about those kind of models, blueprints, common language. It's just an ongoing debate in the sector. And Rahul, you wanted to come in on this as well.
Yeah, the good thing about standards is they are the starting point and they are amendable. You can enhance them, optimize them, and even enhance and evolve them. Like Grant was just mentioning, that they are the starting point, they are the communication channel. They define how to define a service, how to define a model, and how two systems should interact. A system could be an intent generator, and the other could be a CFS to RFS converter, and then the configuration implementation. So for me, I think the industry is obviously changing. They are evolving. There have been, like the question also mentioned, TM4MF, NEF, and a lot of standards evolving from the user locations and MEC as well. So standards are obviously evolving, but we as industry should not stay at that. They should be starting point. And on top of it, there are always possibilities to enhance that. For example, I think Grant was hinting to that if there is a Helm chart, or if there is a CSAR package to deploy an application, can you not integrate the observability of that? Can you not integrate the security SOC integration into that? Can you not integrate the lifecycle management policies into that? And then it becomes probably all of them are different standard, but combination of them could actually help you automate, define a end-to-end model, and also let system do the talking rather than human touching it again and again to define a policy once the application is instantiated, or even to define an observability pattern event log when the application is actually being handed. So as I said, I mean, standards are starting point. Let's treat them as a starting point and keep working on them and innovating.
Okay, great, Rahul. And Grant, we'll come back for you for one quick, very final comment before we need to wrap up the show.
Actually, I was just giving Rahul a giant thumbs up on his.
Oh, I see. there we go. And the final comment is Rahul. Thanks so much for those great comments, and great comments from you all. This has been a fantastic set of answers, and we did have some more questions. I'm just going to tell you very quickly what the topics were before I hand back over to Guy. We had a question about why Open RAN is so very often linked with automation. We had a question about whether the best automation tools for telcos might come from outside the telco sector. But those questions we will, we could hang them over to tomorrow's live show, of course, or we might get to them another time. But at this point, Guy, I need to hand back to you.
Yep, thank you very much, Ray. Absolutely terrific discussion there. We are out of time now. Thank you so much to all of our guests who joined us for this live program, and to our audience for sending in questions. As Ray says, sorry, we didn't have time to get through them all because we had so many responses and such rich information coming out from our guests here. So thanks very much for that.
Yep. And like I mentioned, we'll be back tomorrow for our live panel and Q&A show on orchestration, evolution, and the promise of network as a service. So you can start sending in your questions now, and don't forget that poll question. There's still time for you to have your say and influence the outcome.
Yes, it's an excellent poll question, so please do. That's all for day one of this year's Network Automation Summit. Ray and I will be back with you tomorrow for day two, the final day of our summit, and we start at 3:30 p.m. UK time, but please do check the TelecomTV website for exact timings and more information about the full agenda. For now though, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.